We can't see folks online, but folks online can see us. So I apologize for that oversight, but hopefully it won't be an issue. We should be able to hear everyone when we get into questions. So some people are coming online, and I'll just sort of roll into things with some soft introductions here and welcome everyone. I think most everybody knows me. I'm Brian Slack. I'm Principal Transportation Planner for the Ulster County Transportation Council. And if we could just go around the room and have staff introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Seeger.
I'm Chris Seeger, Senior Transportation Planner.
Our consultant.
Good evening, everyone. Scott Levine. I'm a professor at SUNY New Paltz and a consultant working for the UCTC on the plan.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Doyle. I'm the planning director for the county and also the director of the Ulster County Transportation Council. Welcome tonight. We have a short presentation. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and then we'll take questions and hopefully comments as well.
Right, and the meeting is being recorded in case anyone was wondering. So, and I should also introduce Legislator Nolan.
I'm Kathy Nolan. I'm here today in my role as legislator with Ulster County. I represent District 22, which is Olive, Shandaken, Benning, and Hardenburg. I also work during the day for Casco Mountain Keeper, and my colleague Taylor Jaffe is here from Casco Mountain Keeper, our main office over in Sullivan County.
Great, thank you for that introduction. And if I may, Rosemary Quinn, member of the Ulster County Traffic Safety Board, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to just run through our attendees online quickly for everyone's edification?
Sure, one moment. Participants list is gone. We have Spectrum News, we have Tanya Garment, and we have Rob Bellinger.
Okay, great. So welcome, everyone. Let's get into it. So tonight we're here to talk about the Ulster County Transportation Council Long-Range Transportation Plan. We'll start out with our introductions. I'm going to give a brief overview of who we are as an organization, the Ulster County Transportation Council, get into the document, Mobility 2050, what it is and what it contains, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Before I go any further, rather than wait to the end for this piece of information, I want everyone to know up front that for public comment through September the 5th. So that's roughly 4 weeks, a little less than 4 weeks. It can be accessed. We have print copies here in the room. It can be accessed online through either of the URLs, either the UCTC site or Participate Ulster. Comments can be submitted to the UCTC address, and the approval process is one that requires two committee reviews and approvals. The first is the UCTC Technical Committee. They're the advisory committee to the Transportation Council on the 26th of August. And then the Policy Committee is the final executive committee that will give final approval, we hope, to the document. And that committee meets on September 23rd. If you're interested in receiving updates on UCTC projects and programs and other notifications, visit the website and join our distributions. We don't email very often. So what is the Ulster County Transportation Council? We are a federal entity hosted by the Ulster County Planning Department that's responsible for developing plans and decisions and making decisions about how our federal transportation funds can be spent. We don't own any bridges or roads or trails, but we do. But we are responsible for administering federal funds that can build those facilities. It's something that's referred to as the 3C planning process, which refers to the continuing, comprehensive, and cooperative planning process that's been in place since 1963. And again, it's a federal requirement that we develop the long-range transportation plan inside the urbanized area of Ulster County. As I mentioned, the Ulster County Transportation Council has a policy committee, which is made up of the highest elected officials, state DOT, and the New York State Thruway Authority. And we also don't work alone. We work really closely with our neighboring counties, Dutchess County Transportation Council and Orange County Transportation Council, as part of what's known as a transportation management area. You can see here in the slide, there is the Poughkeepsie-Newburgh urbanized area. It does go into Ulster County, so we're required to work with them, and we work very closely and very well with them. In New York State, there are 14 metropolitan planning organizations like UCTC. So if you're in one of these areas highlighted on the map, you are in an MPO that we all have these same requirements: to update the long-range plan, to develop a capital program called the Transportation Improvement Program that includes all the federal funding, as well as a planning program. What is the long-range transportation plan that we're here for tonight? It's a federally required document. We have to update ours every 5 years. So the update is now due. It's due in September. Generally speaking, it's a strategy on how we invest these federal dollars. And it needs to be developed in close consultation with our transit agency, Ulster County and Ulster County Area Transit, as well as our partners at the New York State Department of Transportation, who we work very closely with hand in hand. This document looks 25 years into the future. The requirement is 20, we do 25, so it's in line with our partners in Dutchess and Orange County. It's a nice number. All of our work, our corridor plans, our neighborhood studies, our traffic studies, all the funding that we allocate to specific projects needs to be in alignment with the long-range plan. The current plan, I have copies of it here, which is still effective for another month or two, is the year 2045 long-range plan. We're very happy with the layout of this document, and we consider this new iteration an update to the existing plan. It has a new title. We're calling it Mobility 2050. But for the most part, the layout, the content is largely the same, but we're updating it with new information where we can gather it from. And there are some areas that we really felt we needed to improve upon from the original document, and we'll walk you through what some of those changes are. We did have consultant assistance. It was roughly a year ago that my close colleague, Dave Stas, said that he was moving to Rochester with his family. And so we thought it was important that we had consultant assistance to get us across the finish line. So we're happy to be working with FHI Studio on public engagement, now IMEG, they're changing their name, and also Transpo Group, and Scott introduced himself. He's here representing the great team from Transpo Group, who actually helped us with a lot of the technical expertise associated with developing the plan. Once we get the plan adopted, we're not done. There's still going to be additional components to our contract where we're going to have a dynamic interactive website that's going to be developed. So a lot of this content will be very easily accessible through the UCTC website, through story maps and interactive infographics. And we look forward to getting that developed in the months ahead. But right now, the focus is on getting this document reviewed by the public. A long-range transportation plan at its core, it's intended to establish a community vision for the transportation system. And as I mentioned, we're looking at a 25-year horizon, but the basic fundamental components of that are the people in the community in terms of transportation, reviewing those needs against various types of alternatives that can satisfy them, then establishing priorities. And obviously there are constraints, the obvious one being money. And we have a fixed amount of money. This is a what we call a fiscally constrained document, in that we cannot just put every project under the sun in it. We have to show that there is a fiscal constraint or fiscal limit, upward limit to what can be constructed. And we'll walk you through how that process works as well. It's a 25-year plan, but because we update it every 5 years, we understand things get fuzzy after 5 years. No one has a crystal ball, and the world is rapidly changing, and transportation is certainly no exception to that. So while we try to plan for a 25-year horizon, the 5-year update period allows us to make adjustments over time. And as we go further out, some of the things that we identify are more illustrative and aspirational. Further out we go. And finally, the plan is what we like to call SMART, which is a common acronym used specific. So we want to be as specific as we can regarding transportation needs. Measurable, you can't manage what you can't measure. Actionable, realistic, understanding who's the responsible party, and time bound, giving a sense of when these things can be accomplished. That's the overview of the long range plan. I'm going to talk now about our process, which included public engagement beginning in February, March, and April, where we slowly started to roll out some of our public engagement components to this document. We had a survey that was emailed out and kept open for about 3 months. We received 250 responses, and it also included an interactive mapping component where we received 314 specific site location comments through that process. We also had several focus group meetings where we spoke with selected individuals from the community, and tabling events throughout Ulster County at Catskill Mountain Center, Ashoka Rail Trail, different events around Kingston and other parts of the county. And what did we hear during the public engagement component? There was quite a bit. We had 4 pages of summary of our public engagement that is included in chapter 2 of the document. Welcome, you come on in. Public engagement is right up front in the document, the results of public engagement, because we want people to see what everyone's thoughts were, and it's a primary component of the long range plan, is what people want to have of their, it's what people want to see in their transportation system. To summarize it in 4 bullet points, although again, it's 4 pages of summary, some of the things that we heard frequently were safety, transportation safety for all users, traffic calming in neighborhoods, expanding transit service and frequency were very frequent comments, which might have something to do with the fact that we are in the process of doing a route optimization plan right now for the Ulster County area transit system. And affordability, affordable mobility and access to transportation so that they can get to employment and other regional connections. We also had, if you were able to use the survey, there was an interesting slider tool where we asked respondents, if you had $100, how would you distribute it on the transportation system? And there were, 12 to 14 options or so of different types of examples of how they could invest that $100 as a percentage. We divided it into 2 main focus categories. One, the highway system, meaning roads, bridges, trails, that sort of thing. And then the transit system. So the top 4 comments or most frequently selected priorities for the highway system were, interestingly enough, number 1 was expanded shoulders on rural roads, which was somewhat unexpected, for me anyway. Paving was number 2, just repairing the road surface. Sidewalks, which doesn't come very much of a surprise if you live in any of our villages or Kingston. Sidewalk and extension. And then active transportation in general was very more trails, more safe biking, more safe facilities to move about outside of a car. On the federal transit side, increased bus service area, so buses need to go further into more places, and increased bus frequency, which I think is definitely in line with the route optimization plan comments that we've been hearing. Then regional bus service connections, so people want to get to the train, they want to get outside the county. Not just to the train though, interestingly enough, if you live in Legislator Nolan's district on the outskirts of Ulster County, if you want to go to a medical appointment, you're probably going to be going to Fleischmann's or if you're in the southern part of the county, you're gonna be going to Newburgh or other parts in Orange County, Middletown. And even though UCAT does offer service outside of Ulster County, we're not necessarily going to those specific destinations. So regional bus service connections means a lot of different things to different people. And then bus shelter amenities, which is something we've heard quite a bit about. More bus shelters, better bus shelters, cleaner bus shelters. So that's just a selection of some of the things that we've heard during public engagement. Of course, the public engagement process continues through these meetings and the public comment period. I'm not going to talk about what's in the, yes, please.
Would you just mind explaining, do they just mean bus shelters? Or if they meant amenities, like what kind of amenities?
I think in summary, it's bus shelters themselves, but amenities can mean anything like feedback, so knowing when the bus is coming, even climate control, heated sidewalks, we've seen in other parts of the country, in other cities, and at least at the hubs.
Lighting.
Lighting, protection from the weather,
Yeah, cameras.
interactive informational kiosks, things of that nature. Yeah. So this is a 216-page document. There's no way we can go over all the information. I think it's a great compendium for everyone to use if you're interested in transportation. We have a lot of great data in here that we're really proud of. I'm not going to get to all of it, but I'm going to talk about more in general. How do we begin about this process of developing a long-range plan? We have to look at what induces demand for transportation. And the big thing is travel for employment. And so we look at where do people work, where do they live, and how do they get there? Where do they want to shop? Where are they seeking healthcare? And what routes are they taking? What travel patterns are we seeing? How do we measure that? And this is a map of some of our critical corridors across Ulster County. What are the condition of those corridors? How safe are they? And obviously the corridors and the employment centers are going to be focused on in our communities, in our neighborhoods. And we call these employment centers, population centers, and priority growth areas, as they're sometimes referred to as. So these are really have been the focus of investments in the transportation system over time. We look at population characteristics. This slide shows an overview of various population projections that have been done by our own Ulster County Planning Department, as well as partner agencies like the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, which is the MPO for the New York metro area, and Cornell Applied Demographics also does projections. And everyone, based on various inputs, has a different output. Everything's different, even when you look at these even from the same agency, when they're done at different points in time, they're coming up with different outcomes. So overall, what we're seeing in the county in terms of demographics, growth is definitely slowing, if not potentially declining over time. That's what's being projected. It's definitely, we're having an aging population. And part of the reason why I think we're having a slowing growth is growth is restricted by the lack of housing opportunities, which is something that the county has been addressing. And then after 5 or 10 years, it's really hard to predict what we're going to see, because again, there are so many potential changes that can impact growth to population. We look at how we travel, and there's so many different modes. We call it mode share, right? You can choose a car, or you can do ride share. You can go by bus on UCAT or trailways. Active transportation like bicycle, e-mobility devices, or by foot as a pedestrian. So we look at all the different modes of travel. When we look at the previous plan from 2020, we drew information from the American Community Service census products from 2018. That was our major source of data. At that point in time, the big slice of pie was for the commute to work, which is a really bread and butter measure. We saw that 77% of respondents in Ulster County drive alone to work. In 2023, and I'm sorry these don't match, so I have to walk you through a little bit, but the big pie dropped the share of people who commute to work alone dropped from to 70%, because people are now, that shift is they're working from home primarily. And unfortunately, we saw very small changes, usually declining. Walking went down to 3%, down from 4.3. Public transit is slightly down, but this is 2023, prior to free fares being enacted in Ulster County. And bicycle barely changed from 0.4% to 0.3%. But we never see a shift like this in terms of this. We've been charting this for decades, and that's a very significant shift, the work from home trend. Where do we work? We have some really interesting information in terms of worker flows for employment, and we're still seeing over 10,000 people leaving for work, traveling what we call mega commuters, traveling to the New York metropolitan region, southern region, for employment on a daily basis, 10,000 people. And even higher than that, over 13,000 people are traveling to Dutchess County every day. There's only two ways to get there. Either at least if you're traveling from Ulster County, it's the Kingston Rhinecliff Bridge or the Mid-Hudson Bridge. And workers who know that they have to factor in travel time in order to make it across that bridge.
So combined, that's 25%.
It's significant. It's very significant. Aging infrastructure. We look at the condition and the age of infrastructure. It's a serious issue throughout the Northeast, especially New York State, because we were outliers and innovators at the turn of the century when we built our infrastructure. And much of that infrastructure is well overdue for replacement or repair, and it becomes a serious issue in terms of cost. And it becomes an issue in terms of decision-making as well, because we have limited dollars. How do we allocate those dollars? These are two maps that show pavement conditions in Ulster County and bridge conditions. We also track those over time, and we're seeing small but steady improvements in the overall condition of our pavements and bridges. I'm going to talk a fair bit about safety tonight because it's a major component in this plan. I think we have I know we have the best focus and the best information on safety that we've ever had at this point in time. As staff at the Transportation Council, we can access it quickly. And then through the long-range planning process with transpose assistance, we had an ability to do quite a bit of detailed analysis and deep dives. This shows crashes over time in Ulster County, all crashes, all modes on our roadways, fatalities and serious injuries by year. And we did see a significant increase in crashes throughout the COVID period. This also controls for a 5-year average. And if you can see the dotted lines at the top, they are beginning to plateau. So what we're hoping we're seeing across the entire network is a steady decline in crashes, but it's too early to say exactly what's happening. And I have more information there in just a moment. When it comes to crashes, fatalities and serious injuries by type, roadway departure, clearly the outlier in Ulster County. We have a rural road network that is not well lit, lots of curves, horizontal curves, and vertical curves, hills. Those things combined lead to a lot of roadway departures. And there's funding sources that New York State DOT is working on distributing throughout New York State to address some of these concerns through signage and striping and other proven safety countermeasures. But this also helps us determine what's the best way to focus our limited dollars if we really want to see crash reduction on our roads. Fatalities and serious injuries by emphasis area. Age-related is the major outlier here, meaning that most of our crashes that are resulting in serious injury and fatalities are from drivers that are senior citizens, but also intersections are a major problem as well. That's where the conflicts are occurring. Vulnerable road users and roadway departures, again, are ranking high as well. We do have some highlights of some of the work that we've done as a transportation council, working with our communities. One that we're very interested in looking at and showing is crash analysis on Broadway over the course of the past 5, 6, 8 years or so. The Transportation Council originally did the Building a Better Broadway conceptual design project, partnering with the city and trying to see what we could do with this stretch of Broadway outside the door here in terms of a road diet. And we looked at a variety of options, and then the city followed up with its implementation project. Really interesting to see. We asked Transpo to look at that project area from beginning to end, essentially the roundabout to where the project terminated at Pine Grove. Look, what's the crash trend occurring there over time? And we were really interested to see that, it was already beginning to decline, and then COVID happened. And we saw that increase in crashes on Broadway, even after the improvements. Safety countermeasures, which included a road diet, better crosswalks, and also in combination with the reduced speed limit reduction that recently occurred, it appears that we're seeing some positive gains from those improvements on Broadway. But we need to track it over time. We also want to acknowledge in the document the safe systems approach, which is a new paradigm to traffic safety that was promoted by the previous Secretary of Transportation, Buttigieg, that is an entirely different approach to looking at traffic safety from a different perspective. It's not clear at this point where the United States Department of Transportation is going in terms of the safe systems approach, or even New York State DOT or Ulster County. And I think in the months and years ahead, we'll receive some clarification and guidance regarding the safe systems approach and how that framework can be better used as a policy locally. And I know the Traffic Safety Board is going to be taking that issue up in the months ahead. Pedestrian crash history, Ulster County wide, you'll note there is no trend in decline for pedestrian crashes occurring. Significant increase during COVID between 22 and 23. Again, we hope in 24 there's a plateau. We want to see a decline over time through greater enforcement, better engineering of some of these facilities, and addressing some of the specific locations. Same trend for bicycles. Ulster County bike crashes 2014 to 2023. The top line shows all crashes combined, serious injury, fatal, and other, which usually are, fortunately, did not result in a serious injury, but it was a crash that was reported.
Do we know that pedestrian and bicycle use was steady during that time, or do we think it increased?
I don't know. I have only heard anecdotally that it likely increased. And I only know that on a nationwide perspective. I know that from my own observations that it very likely increased. I don't have hard data in terms of counts, volume counts of our bike and ped, but we know that people were getting out more, trying to be more active during the pandemic.
We do know that vehicle volume increased.
Right.
We do know to the extent that that's a causality.
So there's quite a bit on safety, but we're also focusing on active transportation. And in fact, this document iteration doesn't just regurgitate or redo the old 2045 section on what we used to call non-motorized transportation. We now have a new section on active transportation. It outlines 5 or 6 primary goals for active transportation for the UCTC and our partners to work on, which is to continue to address gaps in the regional trail network, which we've done a fantastic job at addressing so far, improving amenities on our existing trail network, including improving trail surface and addressing amenities at some of the parking lot hubs and other locations, expanding connectivity from the trail network, which is a protected off-road network, to our communities. And how do we do that in an effective manner so we can get people who want to leave their front door and use the trail network in a safe manner? How is that going to be accomplished? That's a goal that we want to begin to address. Addressing micromobility and e-mobility like scooters and bikes for first mile and last mile connections, and complete streets and sidewalks. People want to feel safe walking on their business and running their errands with a complete bicycle sidewalk network within their neighborhoods. And how can we work on plans to help facilitate that? And of course, safety for all users. These are goals identified for active transportation. And I would presume in the next 5-year period, let's say, we will probably be moving forward in developing an active transportation, which would be an update to the 2008 non-motorized plan, which really led to a lot of the improvements in bicycle, trail, and pedestrian facilities that we've seen in the past 14 years. Were identified in that original plan. So it's time to move on to the next era, we feel, of active transportation. We look at freight. We have a lot of interesting freight statistics on freight. We're not really a freight generator in Ulster County, but we know a lot of freight passes through Ulster County, not just by truck, but also obviously by the West Shore Railroad. And so we have some crash information that has occurred on the railroad corridor, not just at the intersections, but throughout. Rail safety information is included as well. And of course, public transit. I don't think I emphasized transit very much during this presentation. We've been talking transit quite a bit in Ulster County over the course of the past several months, and we will continue to through our route optimization plan. This is not, the plan itself does contain lots of information regarding our goals and aspirations for our UCAT Ulster County area transit bus system. This is just a snapshot of ridership, the major impacts that were that the bus system and its operators had to deal with during COVID, and the recovery that continues to this day. And this is only through the end of 2024. I think these numbers continue to climb, likely due to the fare-free policy enacted by Ulster County. We look at congestion on our roadways. An interesting issue that we struggle with, at least that I struggle with as a professional transportation planner, is we know these are numbers for what's called VMT, vehicle miles traveled. It's one measure of traffic that we use to measure traffic on our roadways, and the volume over the course of a year typically that our roadways see. And it's provided to us by the New York State DOT, and you'll see there's a general trend of decline over time of VMT on Ulster County, but that never seems to jive with our observations. Those obvious locations in New Paltz, on Ulster Avenue, on weekends. What is happening if travel VMT is declining? Why are we continuing to see these big spikes of congestion and tie-ups in our neighborhoods? And that's because we're finding travel patterns are changing. They changed during COVID and they continue to change. We get a lot of visitors. We're a tourism destination. And in order to begin to try to paint a picture of what's happening here, we're using some more innovative tools to begin to track it. Rather than the traditional tube counters, where we would count, which we do put out tube counters of our own and count volumes on our local roadways over a rolling period of time, we can use a tool called Replica, which uses cell phone data. And we can draw periods of time and track them at pictures, epochs in time throughout the recent past, and see what was happening on our roadways during the Garlic Festival, for example, or during a typical fall weekend on Route 299 in New Paltz, which is what this slide shows, that was prepared for us by Transpo. And essentially what it shows is that recurring congestion doesn't follow the typical AM, PM peak in some of our locales. And in New Paltz, that's definitely the case, that Fridays in the summertime, we're seeing serious congestion on Route 299. And I think that probably meets with everyone's experience. And there's other locations like that as well. So we're trying to use innovative tools and measures to look at congestion on our roadways. And we talked about working from home. These have impacts on travel as well locally. Transpo did a control using Replica again for people who travel who work from home versus people who travel who do traditional in-person work. And we're finding individuals who work from home spread their trips throughout the day and are actually making more trips than they otherwise would have if they were stuck in their typical 9 to 5, because you're restricted in your movements essentially when you have that fixed location requirement. And so that may also be contributing to increases in localized traffic and congestion in some of our roadways in Ulster County. We do track and measure battery electric vehicle registration. This shows battery electric vehicles in Ulster County over time. Huge growth, 2% of total registered vehicles in Ulster County. I don't have the total number of vehicles, but it's just over 1,000 registered as of 2024. We're seeing more charging facilities coming online all the time. Kingston is home to the second National Electric Vehicle, the NEVI program. The second facility to the United States was opened in Kingston. The first, I think, was in Ohio. And also the Kingston location was the first, obviously, in New York State. And I'm pleased to note that there was a recent finding I read the other day that the courts have ruled that those NEVI dollars were frozen by the US DOT, and they need the ruling was that those funds need to be released and provided to the state. So they will probably be appealed, knowing the administration, but it's encouraging nonetheless. Transportation resiliency, looking at how our infrastructure can better withstand repetitive impacts of weather and other types of hazard events. That's transportation resiliency as a primary focus. We did a resiliency study several years ago and drew some of the results into this document. The two primary threats to our transportation infrastructure, days of excessive heat, which can warp the facilities themselves, and of course, flooding, which has massive impacts, as we've seen during Superstorm Sandy and Irene. And identifying the facilities on our system that are aging out and need to be upgraded is a major goal of that effort. So I'm getting near the end here. The document, while we do a massive inventory of information and data crunching, we then need to begin to pull it all together. And how do we begin to identify the projects that we're going to be prioritizing in the years ahead? And we've done that by whittling it down to 4 primary goals are included in this document. And under those goals is how we arrange our projects. What we're proposing here are projects going forward. Planning projects for further study and implementation projects for construction. The 4 main goals of Mobility 2050 are system preservation. That means maintain what we have in good working order, in a state of good repair. That includes buses, roads, bridges. Before we build new, for new facilities, especially if we're seeing reductions in VMT, why would we be expanding those facilities? At least for roads and bridges. Safety will continue to be, and these are no priority, by the way, safety will continue to be an emphasis area. So continually improve the safety of all users of the transportation system by responding to identified safety deficiencies and proactively addressing future safety needs. He was one of the first NPOs to do a systemic crash analysis where we look not only at the location of crashes, but we control for the volume of traffic on the roads, and the frequency at which those specific crash types were occurring, so that we can begin to identify locations that have an inordinate amount of crashes, meaning then we can begin to prioritize where we invest in safety projects. And we'll be continuing to update that study going forward in the years ahead. Resiliency, ensure that the transportation system users have a sustainable and secure environment, and the transportation system can provide adequate service during severe weather events. And mobility, which I believe is probably the broadest goal here, provide for efficient and reliable travel by all modes by investing in strategies that mitigate both recurring and non-recurring congestion. Mobility to me means having seamless options, being able to get to where you want to go, using the mode that you want to use to get there. How can we facilitate that through this plan? We include performance measures, so we're tracking things over time. How are we doing? We're looking at road and bridge conditions, which, as I mentioned, are gradually improving. A big part of that is due to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the massive amount of money that has been contributed, particularly to bridges. We're looking at our trail and sidewalk network. We have inventoried nearly all sidewalks in Ulster County and have that in geographic information system and have the conditions of those sidewalks. They've been inventoried as well. Looking at transit fleet, what is the age of our buses? What is the average lifespan of the bus? How close are we to meeting those useful life benchmarks? And when will they be replaced? And do we have the ability to replace them? Looking at crashes over time as well, and journey to work information is monitored as well. These are our own performance measures that we have, and we have required performance measures that are included as well. The document, as I mentioned, is required to have fiscal constraint. And how do we do that? We have to have a financial plan. So what we do is we get behind a spreadsheet and we look at all the allocations of federal aid, state aid that goes into our transportation system at a given snapshot in time. In this instance, it's 2024. And then we project that amount of aid 25 years into the future. The total amount of aid or money invested to the transportation system is estimated to be $1.9 billion over the course of a 25-year lifespan. That is if we hold investments 24 level, no increases for inflation over time. And then given that, we have different formulas for determining, is it going to be sufficient to maintain the system that we have, given bridge conditions and the need to replace bridges and the lifespan of bridges, roads, etc. Will we have the money to maintain our system? The answer is mostly over time. And that's what this Sankey chart begins to show, is from the left-hand side of the chart, the flow of revenue source from federal aid to specific targets of the transportation system, be they buses, sidewalks, roadways, state bridges, etc. So we track them very closely, the flow of funds. And then finally, and nearly in conclusion of the document itself, there's a plan of projects, required component. What is the plan of projects going forward, and how do we set that up? We have a pretty straightforward method for including our plans. I mentioned previously, we have a transportation improvement program. That's what's shown here in the map. These are projects that already have federal aid allocated to them for construction. They're currently in various stages of design and implementation for construction. We know that these projects have a very high likelihood of implementation and success because they're required to. They have contracts signed with state DOT, with local municipalities. So they'll be constructed very likely in the next 5 years. Those are our near-term projects and our midterm projects, which will be constructed likely by 2030 or 2035. Again, the funding has been allocated for those projects. More illustrative and aspirational projects that with that $1.9 billion of dollars, where are we going to invest that money? And we lay out a variety of aspirational strategies And where we can, we're specific with different types of projects and where those investments will occur. And those are included in the plan of projects as well. So what does that look like? What are the results over time? A selection of projects that have been implemented in Ulster County with federal aid over the course of the past 5 years since our last iteration of the long-range transportation plan. The Broadway Streetscape project was 2021, I believe, construction. Henry Streetscape project, Wirt Street Bridge rehabilitation, Midtown Linear Park, O&W D&H Rail Trail connecting Washington Avenue to Hurley, the Kingston Nevy Chargers, DC Fast Chargers, the Empire State Trail, may have been 2018, the components came after. The Henry W. Dubois Bike Lane in town of New Paltz, UCAT bus acquisitions. They acquired many buses over the period of time. New traffic signals, at least 7 local and county bridges constructed. I think it may be more. Tilson Ave and Lloyd. I got Nevy charges in there again by accident. So this is an example that these plans met, and they will result in physical improvements in our communities. So the question that we pose throughout the project is, what do we want our investments to look like? And how do we balance those investments between the needs of all users, people who are using their vehicles, choosing to drive on roads, who want to use a better transit system, who want to get there safely by foot or by bicycle. Those are the difficult choices that we have to make as we allocate the limited dollars that we have. So in conclusion, again, the document is available in its entirety at either of the 2 URLs at the top. Comments can be submitted through September 5th. And the technical meeting schedule is shown there as well. And if you want to be added to our mailing list, that is the address to do it. Questions, we're here to begin to answer questions now. This is our contact information. From here on out, if you have questions after, you can direct them to me, or Dennis, or even Chris. If Chris did put actually quite a bit of effort in some of our transit components of the document. If you have written comments, I just ask that they be submitted by email when you're ready to submit them. So that concludes my presentation. With that, I'm happy to open the floor up for dialogue, for comments, for questions, and we'll do our best to answer them.
And why don't we do this? Why don't we do questions from the room or comments from the room and then comments from those online? We'll switch back and forth.
Sure.
Give everybody a fair shot for comments.
Are there any questions or comments online, Chris?
Nothing just yet.
Hi, so
Do you mind just introducing yourself?
sure, thanks. Tanya Garment, live in the city of Kingston, just an active resident. So I understand that this is kind of just very much in line with the one from 2020. We're in a position now federally where, looking at this and all the things that I'm disappointed in this, it makes me wonder how much the language is to appease the federal government with being careful not to say things like reducing vehicle miles traveled. But I also don't see anything in here that will actually reduce vehicle miles traveled. You made a statement, I was listening on the call. I want to understand if I understood that correctly. You said a lot of this is in a holding pattern, especially if we are, we have reduced vehicle miles traveled, right? Like we're not showing as much of a need. Were you saying, was that what you were saying? Maybe I need to go back on that one. Maybe I need to go and look at the recording and see if I can understand that. But there's not enough talk in this about pedestrians, how we deal with congestion. The answers to that are really about keeping cars moving. Even the Broadway streetscape is a great example, and it's pointed to in this, where we have the signal optimization. And the signal optimization, I think that people should really understand what that signal optimization was all about. That was about keeping the cars moving. It's timed at the maximum speed limit. Signal optimization can be used to encourage more bicycle riding and pedestrian use. But because it was an NYSERDA grant and they have this dinosaur of a program where they want to reduce emissions, when we're moving towards electric, by inducing demand for cars, by making it as easy as possible to go through and prioritizing cars on the Broadway streetscape. We made it so that cars can get through many lights. What we should have done is, if we really wanted to reduce vehicle miles traveled, and in that we would reduce congestion by not incentivizing driving and giving people an actual option that's safe, would be to allow bicycles to go through many lights. So I'm really scared that the Ulster County is looking to do more of the same of that. We need to actually use that optimization to encourage bicycle and pedestrian use. We need to have a real focus on reducing vehicle miles traveled for safety. You pointed to seniors as a main factor in driving. I found out that my son's school bus driver, when he was in high school, 95 years old. We need to be able to give people who get past a certain age a different option, and we're not doing that yet. Another, I just want to make sure that I've also pointed out with that signal optimization on Broadway, that's why we have those beg buttons still. We need to be moving away from, especially in densely populated areas, moving away from beg buttons, which are pedestrian actuated signals. So you will not get a walk signal unless you've asked permission. So you just can't keep walking. You're gonna have to press buttons. You're gonna have to stop and wait. You get to the light just after it changed for the vehicles. You're supposed to press the button and wait for the next signal phase. You can't be like, okay, kids, let's make the light, because it's not going to give enough time for a mom with kids to get across, because it's time for the vehicles. That's what the NYSERDA gave to the Broadway streetscape. That's the signal optimization. It's bad. We need to not use it. We need to not just spread it like a virus throughout the state, throughout the county, using it for the same way. There was something else. Oh, in here, it says that, and I'm thankful that it says that we need to improve service in our densely populated areas of New Paltz and Kingston. But look what we're doing. Like, UCAT just announced, and the route optimization plan also, want to get rid of the New Paltz loop because UCAT claims it has poor ridership. It has poor ridership because UCAT has poor communication, and they don't have signage, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's a very badly run agency. And we need to, we can't just say, oh, well, there's bad ridership. We need to actually say, no, it's an important route. We need to give, in the densely populated areas, people a reason to jump on the bus. We need to cancel it. So this says that we need to improve, and I'm thankful for it, but we're actively doing the opposite right now with the route optimization plan, and UCAT has actually jumped ahead with a few of those things by, for instance, getting rid of the New Paltz loop.
But that's not true. For the route optimization plan, service frequency will increase. That's the proposal of the route optimization.
We haven't gotten schedules, but if you look at it, we'll see service frequency on the New Paltz loop is every half hour. Every half hour. I'm not talking about every half hour in like peak hours. New Paltz loop gives us every half hour. It gives us Sunday service. And the route optimization plan is going to take away all Sunday service for New Paltz. There'll be no service in New Paltz on Sundays. So it's not quite that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to, before we take our next comment, note that all comments submitted in writing will be included in the appendix to the plan, along with a response sheet as to how we will address the comment. Yes.
Okay, thank you for your presentation and report. I apologize for hearing this. I was wondering if you could go back to the slide that has goals on it.
Sure.
And
would you mind just introducing yourself?
Oh, sure. My name is Lisa Minton. I'm a resident of Kingston. And I just want to observe that while there is the language of the sustainable and secure environment and the resiliency, I'm just kind of surprised that there's not a greenhouse gas emission reduction goal consideration woven throughout as a goal given our green priorities here in Ulster County, and that greenhouse gas emissions of the transportation sector is the largest emitting sector in New York State. So I just was wondering, that's my question, which I can submit as public comment as well. And I also just want to thank the recognition of the building connectivity between the rail trail system and communities, because that's what we've experienced. I work in New Paltz. A lot of discussion around, we have all these amazing rail trail systems, and how do we get to them safely from where we live and work?
Nice to finally put a face to a name, Lisa. Nice to meet you. Thank
I
you.
am a stranger. What's your name?
Brian Slack.
Brian.
We exchanged a lot of emails over the ages.
Anybody online? We do have one hand up from Ella Conrad. Unmute them.
Hi.
Hello.
Should I be on video? Or yeah, I don't have to be on video. That's fine. Hi, I'm Ella Condrat, and I live in the town of New Paltz. Oops, sorry. I'm gonna submit things during via writing, but I just wanted to kind of quickly say that I feel that, or I believe that there is evidence that the goal of reducing congestion and the goal of, improving or maximizing safety and accessibility can be at maybe not 100% of the time, but very often at odds, especially in more dense areas. And we're actually, right now in New Paltz, we've had some advocates who have had petitions, and the mayor and I think it was the mayor and some trustees just had a meeting with DOT, and DOT agreed to kind of preliminary some ideas. I guess they gave some ideas preliminarily. I guess it wasn't an agreement. But long story short, I believe that DOT prioritizes the movement of cars on Main Street in New Paltz over the safety and accessibility of people walking, as well as biking in the town. And I really think it would be good to have a statement from the county that explicitly says that when it comes to making decisions about infrastructure, safety is going to be prioritized over the movement of cars. Because right now, it's not that way at all. And, we're making little movements in that direction, but, I feel impatient because I feel like we could be doing more and making larger steps, because a lot of people are in other places. Anyway, I'm kind of, I just wanted to say that. And I also would really like to see a goal for 0 traffic fatalities for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. Rose.
Hi, so I'm Rose Quinn. I sit on the Ulster County Traffic Safety Board. I'm a Kingston resident. I also sit on the newly formed TRIAC, Ulster County Transit Advisory Committee. I also was a traffic safety grant director for Ulster County for a couple of years. So a couple of concerns that jump out, and I'm definitely going to be writing in some comments. First, on page 13, I am definitely very happy to see in the presentation that safety is being prioritized. However, under the objectives column in page 13 in your vision, it says reduce the number of fatal and serious injuries, reduce the number of fatal injuries to pedestrians and bicyclists. That should not be reduced. I'm going to say this as emphatically as I'm going to say it. This should be 0. That should be the goal. There should be no reduce, unless we're talking about, as Tanya mentioned, reducing the number of cars on our roadway. I'm very encouraged to hear that the county is finding different ways to measure vehicles on our roadways, because I, for a little while, have been saying that I think that vehicle miles traveled is fraught when you live in an area with so many transient population. We have this large Sunni, we have a huge population of tourists, and we also have a large part-time workforce that I am not completely convinced are being accounted for correctly. The other thing that and like I said, I am definitely going to be writing in comments in terms of public transportation and UCAT. Now, I am a UCAT rider when I can be. I'll tell you part of the reason why I don't ride UCAT more often is it's not only does not come as often as I need it to for work. It's totally unsynchronized with mine and most people's work schedules, the Z bus. But it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous waiting on Route 28, which is what you have to do. I try, by the way, I do try and call dispatch every now and then and tell them I'm going to be waiting someplace but they often don't answer. Saturday, that was definitely the case. When I called dispatch after being told pretty emphatically that if I would just call, I would get some results. Nobody answered, and I was standing on Route 28 across the street from the shop where I work, moving about in just some of the most terrifying circumstances, frankly, with my bike, still trying to be visible to the bus, because that's what you have to do. Like, you have to deflect. Well, I understand, and I bring this up because also, and I'm not going to find the page, I will when I write in. I see that there's been a comment made about potential abuses to UCAT drivers, and of course, nobody wants to see anybody be abused. Okay, that is certainly not something we ever want to see happen. However, I want to say that as a rider, that to not have my safety considered as a priority is difficult and a little insulting. I also am going to say as a, and maybe I'll take this up in the board, but I would like to see these reports. I would like to see these reports of drivers who have been actually assaulted. Frankly, it is a serious thing. If this is actually happening, then we do need to know about it. I mean, they're having stewards hired. I'd like to know who they are also. But we do need to know, like, what the number and the frequency of those types of incidents are. So just simply saying that we need it. And I'm going to say, that's where we say 0 on page 13 is well, all right, we're referring to that. And I guess that's another question I have too, that transit vehicles, do we have an issue with transit vehicles in this county being dangerous? I don't think we do. So why would we set that as goal when we're not going to set reducing crashes and fatalities as a goal? I'll leave it there, guys. But there is good language in here, but I think, unfortunately, it is that negative bias. But I do want to have those things definitely out there.
We can talk about data in the future for the committee. If there's a requirement or an interest in data, we can look into that and assist you with looking at.
Does anybody online have a question?
Not just incidents. There's incidents on the bus, but then there are crashes, and they are occurring, and that is tracked.
UCAT, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then if someone has a medical issue on the bus as well, that's tracked as well.
Okay.
So that is potentially non-preventable, essentially. That's how we monitor it. That's how we track it.
Great. Okay.
And if I could just add to that, one of the things that was presented to the legislature was that ridership on the buses could be enhanced if there were ways that people with bags from shopping and so forth, especially grocery shopping, could be assisted. And so the part of the idea of the steward was that there's somebody so that the driver of a bus doesn't also have to be helping people with groceries and so forth. So there was a range of concerns that were being addressed. The trial of hiring a couple of stewards.
I want to just interject that I think that the job description could use some review. And maybe before we do another hiring, it could be updated, because that's not a focus of it. It's a problematic job description that resulted.
Very security oriented. They actually say that they are looking for law enforcement, which I don't think when we envisioned the because I don't want to take up too much time with it, but I don't think that's what we envisioned when we were thinking of this steward program.
Chris, anybody online have questions?
No.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah, hello, Taylor Jaffe with Casco Mountain Keeper. And we also anchor the Rethink Route 17 Alliance and campaign. So over in Orange County and also Sullivan County, we've got a $1.4 billion highway proposal for just 20 miles of highway to unnecessarily expand it. So one piece I want to bring here to the Ulster County Transportation Council is, you know, maybe working with your partners in the transportation management area to try to figure out how we can, you know, take expansion off the table and reallocate any portion of that 1.4 billion to some of these safety and other priorities that I think could use funding. I mean, 1.4 is almost the same amount as that 1.9 billion that we're looking at for the next through 2050. So it's certainly a significant level of investment just over in Orange County. And I think it is part of this whole region. So want to lift that up, and also wanted to amplify some of the comments we've heard tonight. I think Vision Zero makes total sense. And I think that also aligns with some of the language coming out of the Department of Transportation, their 2050 master. I think reducing VMT is a great goal, and I think adding that language would certainly be useful, as well as, you know, maybe language about increasing the percentage of spending on multimodal transportation. So that way we can kind of be both, you know, getting more folks into, you know, buses and focusing spending there while getting cars off the road and increasing safety overall.
Just to go off what Tim was saying, and I left that part out, it's so important. I would like to see more talk about workforce investment in terms of bus drivers, in terms of people who are going to help build out our city, particularly bus drivers, and maybe trying to figure out how we can incentivize bus driver positions in Ulster County. Like, what can we offer people to get? I realize that the salary is going to be a tricky one with cost of living in Ulster County, but maybe there's some other stuff we can do if we make it a high priority position.
Thank you. Lisa?
I just wanted to add two other comments. First, you talked about our population aging.
Mhm.
I just wanted to ask a question about the specific ways in which this plan supports an aging population. I'm thinking about my neighbor who lives across the street, who has no car, who is at home, who relies on her networks to grocery shop, to go anywhere. I'm thinking about my dad who has limited mobility issues, and what place county with his mobility concerns and limitations. And I haven't figured out the answer for my family yet, but I just think it's like, how do we layer an aging population onto this plan?
No, it's a dilemma, certainly, especially with a limited funding umbrella. But there are several strategies that I think are laid out in the document that do support that. One is complete streets improvements, so people can feel, people of all abilities are able to walk and move throughout their neighborhood. That means ADA accessible sidewalks, for one, and other facilities that will accommodate all abilities. The other is an initiative that we do called the Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan, which begins to identify gaps in transportation services for particularly people who are elderly. And that is a document that is integrated into the long-range transportation plan as well. And there are significant gaps. Some of those gaps that we hope to develop solutions for in the near term are increasing paratransit service, improving the transit service by investing more dollars into it, and having a modernized vehicle fleet, but also looking to the opportunity of traveling to those locations like Fleischmann, so people can get to their medical visits that are outside of Ulster County, but just a few miles down the road, quite literally. So those are some of the near-term solutions that we feel are integrated that would help, I believe, people age in place as we use it.
And on a related question, I also sit on the Ulster County Community Services Board, and we're doing a behavioral health assessment right now. And one of the things that, one of the challenges is facing by people who, people with mental health conditions, for example, who live in hotels in Ulster County, who might be moving, I'm not really on track of what's going on at the new facility across the traffic circle, but I'm just wondering how the study has layered, like people living in motels temporarily with access to like pharmacies, medical, food.
Dennis?
So I don't think it's specific within the study, but the study also includes the relationship to the other studies that the Transportation Council has done. And that does include the route optimization plan, which takes a look at and the human service coordination plan, which takes a look at paratransit. And the UCAT system is as organic as it can be in terms of its ability to foster change. So the example I would give you is in the past, when you look.
If anyone's in the building, please call 3208. Thank you.
You know, we're
In the past, we've expanded the area that's available, paratransit is available in terms of distance from fixed routes. We've expanded that in the county to 1.5 miles rather than the typical out there. And one of the other things that we're looking at, I know that we're going through some changes relative to 30-day notification for the changes for UCAT. One of the things that allows us to do is to expand paratransit service associated with that. So there's some savings on the driver vehicle side that we can put towards paratransit. We don't have enough paratransit service right now. So those are the couple things. The other thing is that the county did essentially earmark through the county legislature and the executive a portion of its funding from a short-term rental increase in taxes to essentially be put towards transit. So when you look at the money that the county is investing in transit, at least last year, the amount of dollars that was available for transit increased by 25% of the short-term rental. So it's about $1.5 to $1.7 million. And when you look at this long-range transportation plan, and you look at the fiscal constraints in that gets baked into the amount of funding that's available for transit, so that we can be fiscally constrained at this particular point in time. And the route optimization study, there's a 25% increase in available local funds for transit.
We also don't want to overlook what I feel is a great opportunity is micromobility solutions. This is now probably the third document that we published that says micromobility, which is a smaller, more agile public transit option that people can order on their phone or dial a ride and have service within, a window of 20 minutes to an hour, so to speak.
And that's recognized
within a zone.
That's recognized in this plan as well.
There are neighborhoods, there are areas of Ulster County that are ripe for this type of service. And funding it, I think, is the next challenge.
And the county has applied for a micromobility grant from NISTOT. We just never haven't heard that would provide micromobility options in Kingston, Ellenville, and New Paltz, and to outlying areas on a day of the week basis. In particular, those out of the area, day of the week basis is looking into micromobility options in the Shandaken area to get people out of the county into areas where there's hospitals and doctors into Delaware County. And then again, in southern Ulster County, to move people into Orange County where we don't run a lot of transit service in southern Ulster County. So we're looking at those areas, the micromobility for those areas. But I think the important thing is can we say something in the plan with respect to that? If we're going to identify an older population, can we identify these are things we should do? And it also includes safety on roads. It includes retroreflectivity on signs and a few other things as well.
Yeah, I do have a quick question about the micro mobility. I mean, I think in some situations it actually is very effective, in others maybe not so much. But it would, I think one of the big objections that's always been to the idea of micro mobility in Ulster is that in the past it's always been trying to reach some outside agency and contract with them and have them do it. And I think that why give up once again on this important workforce opportunity and develop that within Ulster County and not, because a lot of these organizations are fraud. I mean, I think one of the ones that you guys were looking at last time, yeah, they were not, it turned out not, you know, in other places that use them, it's kind of a good thing, I think, that we didn't go through with it. And I'm not fundamentally, I don't think many of us are fundamentally against the idea of micromobility. It's the administration of it and the want of and the sustainability of it.
And the locations of it, like Kingston and New Paltz. Why in Kingston and New Paltz? When we're looking at the revitalization plan, giving us only one bus is gonna go the length of Broadway, our corridor, from downtown to uptown, back and forth, and it's only gonna run every 2 hours. You know, that's the KPI.
You answered your question as to why. But I want to go back to Rosemary's point because your initial micromobility, let's call it microtransit, because micromobility is a little bit broader than what we're talking about. As I recall, private sector had to be. It wasn't like the way the NYSERDA structured it, it had to be a private sector. I will tell you that the application that we put in for is not a private sector application. It basically is a.
We would own the vehicles.
Would be internally to the county.
We would employ the drivers, but you need a software service to really make it function, and that's where.
Well, I mean, that's a step in the right direction.
I think that was supremely recognized by the county executive that we wanted to develop this internally.
Well, if there's no further question or discussion, we'll stick around for a little bit, but we don't want to keep people any longer than is necessary. I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their summer evening to come join us tonight and to give us your feedback. We take it all seriously, and we realize it's not a perfect document, but we want it to be a document that works for everyone and that fulfills our needs and really, hopefully, allows us to address and capture some real opportunities in the next 5 years and well into the future. So
you folks that are going to write in, going to make a plea sooner rather than later. If you have them in your head, or if you have them already written, and you're thinking about things you heard tonight and want to add to them, that's fine. But the more time we have to respond, and we have a fairly short time frame, it would be appreciated. So thank you.
I'm about up to there. And I just.
So I can tell you once you get past there.
And now we have to do the federal one.
Once you get past there, everything's good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Get home safe.
Thanks for coming from Castle Mountain. It's a really good.